The point isn't to manage the outcome. The point is to ask anyway. Hello, 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 and welcome to More Than Money, a podcast where we have nuanced conversations about money, business, and life, where we take the time to explore the human side of money because success with money is never just about the numbers. I'm your host, Jacquette Timmons, and whether this is your very first episode with me or you are joining me for another, I am really, really glad that you've chosen to spend some time with me today. So thank you, and let's get into it. How many times did you courageously ask for something today? Maybe you were asking for a favor or for help or for something that you wanted from someone else. Now, on the surface, ask is just a three-letter word. And yet, the act of asking can generate so much anxiety for some people. And I know that this is sometimes true for me. And I wonder, what about you? Is it true for you too? We can vacillate sometimes between should we or shouldn't we, or we spend more time than necessary wondering, well, what will the other person think of us based upon what we've asked for? And what I find really interesting is that we actually ask for something, actually for many things throughout the day, every day. And the larger question to me, though, is exactly what are you asking for? A, and I guess maybe there's a B part to that question. And how much courage does that ask require of you? And this matters. This matters because what influences your relationship to the act of asking depends on the meaning that you have attached to the ask and to whom the ask is targeted. And this matters because it impacts the degree to which you ask clearly, directly, without over explaining, and also without pre defending. And it also affects the extent to which you ask from a position of scarcity. So think hedging, being apologetic, or just not showing up really confident in the ask. Or are you asking from a position of abundance? So think being grounded, feeling grounded, being specific, open to dialogue. But here's the thing, when you think about it, you and I have been asking since we were babies, before we even had verbal skills. But once we heard and learned how to use your words, you know that phrase, quote unquote, use your words. What we were taught influences us still today. Think about the messages that you absorbed growing up. Did you hear or were you told, don't ask, it's rude? Be grateful for what you have? Wait your turn. Stop being so demanding. Who do you think you are? Money doesn't grow on trees. We don't talk about money. What happens in this house stays in this house. Some of these were said to you directly. Others were modeled. They were modeled from watching the adults around you. Maybe you never heard someone ask for the raise. You never, saw this, the dish be sent back to the kitchen. You never heard someone question the bill or, that anybody else's feathers were ruffled. You never heard someone naming what it was that they wanted, or at least not in your presence. And then on top of the familial one, there's the cultural layer sitting on top of all of that. Because depending upon who you are and where you come from, you may have also learned that asking is unbecoming. It's a sign of being ungrateful, maybe even aggressive, or just downright unsafe. Or that asking maybe is fine, but only for certain things or for certain people in certain ways. So that by the time that you are an adult, negotiating a contract, quoting a price, or telling a partner what it is that you need, you're not just asking, right? You are asking through every message you ever received about whether asking is allowed, who gets to do it, and what it costs to do it, quote unquote, wrong. And so, this is why I like to think of asking as a practice and not a performance. Here's why: a performance is something that you put on. It's tied to whether you're being watched, whether you're getting it quote unquote right, and whether you're earning approval for how you did it. Performance is rehearsed, it's rehearsed for an audience. And here's the cost: when asking is a performance, you only ask when you are sure that you will get the applause. So you shy away from asking for the things that might actually get you a no, which, are often the very things that would actually change your life. On the other hand, a practice is something that you build, which is why I love that we, define the practice of law or the practice of medicine, because it's tied to repetition and refinement and a willingness to be imperfect along the way. Practice is all about you. When I'm practicing, practicing is all about me. And yet, most of us perform, or I should say, most of us are performing the ask when we think we're making it. We're managing, ooh, how will we be perceived? Anticipating the other person's reaction, or softening our voice so that we don't come across as, too much. The ask itself becomes secondary to how the ask looks. But when asking becomes a practice, something shifts. You are no longer auditioning for the yes. You are naming what it is that you want. You are naming it clearly, directly, without over explaining or pre defending. And you're letting the other person respond. So, yes, it's true. Sometimes the asking is an internal exercise, right? Because the person that you are actually asking is yourself. And that looks like, maybe sometimes asking yourself, can you really afford this? Asking yourself, is it okay to rest? Is it okay to rest right now? Or asking yourself if you are allowed to want what it is that you actually want. But I suspect that 90% of the things that you are asking for throughout the day involve other people. And so, this is why it is often hard to ask without apology in advance. And, remember last episode, I talked about the waiting space? That's where the waiting space can feel so excruciating, because a binary yes or no of whether or not you got what you've asked for can be tricky. If you got a yes, does that necessarily equal success? Does a no always mean failure or defeat? A yes can feel like vindication, or it can put you on the hook for something you didn't want as much as you thought. And in that same vein, a no in the moment can feel like rejection, and it can sting. Or it can be a redirection, it can be new information, or even protection. And so the point isn't to manage the outcome, the point is to ask anyway. Because the more you practice asking, and asking courageously, clearly, without dressing it up or shrinking it down, the more you learn that the outcome was never the whole story anyway. You were. Yes, you heard me. I said that. You were. Every ask is a small act of telling the truth about what it is that you want. And the cost of not asking, of staying quiet, of performing, of waiting for someone to offer, is that the truth about what you want never gets a chance to be heard. So, with this week's episode, I'll leave you with three questions to sit with. One, what did you ask for today? And what didn't you ask for? That's one. Two, were you practicing or performing? And then three, what might shift if you treat your next ask as practice instead? Well, actually, I take that back. I really do have four. I want you to mark your calendars or tell a bestie that the next Pricing Made Human masterclass is Thursday, July 9 at 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you or your bestie would like to have more information, then send me a DM on Instagram and say Pricing Masterclass, and I will respond with the next steps. And if it's the case that you are listening to this after that, well, we host the masterclass monthly, so you can go to the website to see, when the next one is being held. But for today, that is a wrap, folks. And as always, I thank you so much for listening. Or if you're watching over there on YouTube, I thank you for joining me there. And if you like what you heard today or this podcast overall, please do me a favor and share it with those in your circle so that we can reach more people than we ever could on our efforts alone. And if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, yes, please do that 5-star rating and leave a written review, because it's the combination of both that helps us with the algorithm. And if you are on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment below, because we do read those as well. And it is summertime, and I do enjoy me, an iced dirty chai, iced latte with oat. So if you'd like to buy me one or contribute to buying me one, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette, buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette. Thanks again for listening or watching, as the case may be. I will be back with another episode, and I do hope that you will too. Until then, remember, it's about more than money.